This is the second lecture under Literature 401, Studies in Fiction. In this lecture, we are going to look at genres of fiction. By the end of the lecture, it is expected that you should be able to list genres of fiction, explain each of the genres of fiction, and provide examples of text or authors in the various genres of fiction. When we talk about genres of fiction, what are we talking about? We are talking about categories or classifications that can be used to organize or explain different types of fiction. Through the genres of fiction, we have a framework that readers, writers, and scholars can use to discuss or analyze works based on different characteristics that are shared among works or that are shared among authors. So it is good for us from the perspective of this course to look into those genres of fiction in order for us to have unique qualities and conventions that make each of the types of fiction or genres of fiction unique or different from one another. So we'll start looking at them one after the other. The first one is literary fiction. When we say literary fiction, we are talking about the genre of fiction that emphasizes artistic and intellectual merit. It's talking about themes, issues, character development, general issues about literary works. That's what literary fiction is all about. Here, emphasis is on the writing style of the author of the fiction and then how deep is the work, how has the work explored different human experiences. An example of literary fiction is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. We also have science fiction. When we talk about science fiction, we are talking about a form of fiction in which emphasis is on scientific imagination, speculations about things that are likely to happen in the future based on some scientific findings or basis or principles. So through scientific fiction, the author is trying to foretell, is trying to look into the future of science, new development, innovations that are likely to come up in the nearest future, particularly in the aspect of technology, the aspect of scientific advancement, in the aspect of social changes. What are the philosophical happenings that the world should be expecting in the nearest future? An example of that is 1984 by George Orwell. Done by Frank Herbert is also a good example for science fiction. Another example or another genre of fiction is fantasy. When we talk about fantasy, we are talking about something that is not realistic, is beyond the natural. It's usually something that has to do with magic, supernatural creatures, mythical realms. Fantasy is like somebody is imagining what cannot happen in the real sense of it. Something that is strange to the human world, that is beyond human imagination, that is operating or taking place in a realm that is beyond humanity. So when we talk about fantasy as a genre of fiction, we are looking at words and issues, words beyond human experience or experiences. So it has to do with imagined words, uh, epic quest, battles between good and evil, and the hero's journey. Things that are beyond the natural. They are magical in nature, they are mythical in nature, they are supernatural in nature. An example or examples of that can be found in Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings and Rollins Harry Potter. They are good example of fantasy as a genre of literature. The next one we are going to look at as a genre of fiction, not literature, the genre of fiction is mystery and detective fiction. As it sounds, is the form of fiction that looks into finding out, trying to investigate, trying to bring out reality, the truth value of an event, the true nature of an event, something that has happened, but the way it has happened is not known to people, and the efforts are being made to unravel the hidden aspect of the story. So, for example, when a crime has been committed and there is need to bring to bear the reality about such an event, an investigation will need to be carried out in order to prove the mystery. What looks mysterious, what looks impossible, what looks unbelievable to people. How do we bring out the reality about it? How do we detect who has done what? So it usually features detectives, private investigators as major characters. So through this, readers are engaged in events that are puzzling, that pursue them in order to uncover hidden truths. We can say examples of mystery and detective fiction in works like Murder on the Orient Express and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. We can also look at romance as one of the genres of fiction, and in this case, emphasis is on love, relationships, emotional connections among characters. So, under this, individuals and their relationship, the form of relationship individuals have among themselves is what the fiction is actually about. So it can encompass various subgenres like historical romance, contemporary romance, and paranormal romance. Romance novels often explore themes of passion, desire, personal growth. So we can see examples of romance in the works of people, authors like Jane Austen, Nora Roberts, and Nicola Sparks. So as far as genres of fiction are concerned, in this series of lecture, we have identified them one after the other. We have talked about romance, we have talked about fallacy or fantasy, we have talked about uh, mystery and detective fiction. We have also talked about science fiction, we've talked about literary fiction. All these form genres of fiction. So there are questions that will come after this presentation. You are advised to go through the questions, provide answers to them. In case you are not sure the answers to provide, go through the presentation as many times as possible. You can then go through the questions. And if you have any issue, you can relate with your friends through the platform or send some your questions to me. Uh, by the grace of God, I want to believe that I'll be able to provide you with satisfactory answer. Till we meet next time, I appreciate your listening to the lecture. Thank you very much.